As the world population climbs from 7 billion people today to 9.7 billion people by 2050, the number of people living in extreme poverty in vulnerable communities will increase. People in these impoverished communities face extreme challenges, including a lack of water, reduced food production, unstable energy sources, and fewer economic opportunities. These global challenges devastate rural and vulnerable communities such as those in Africa, South America, Asia, and the developing world. To meet these challenges, Jewish National Fund USA, the University of Arizona, and the Arava Valley in Israel have formed the Kasser Joint Institute for Food, Water, and Energy Security. And the mission of Kasser Joint Institute is to leverage the existing knowledge and experience of the University of Arizona and the Arava to introduce innovative technology and build capacity for food, water, and energy security in vulnerable communities. The Kasser Joint Institute is a center for applied research, professional training, expertise engagement, and knowledge dissemination. And joining us now in studio is Tania Pons Allon, Director of the Kasser Joint Institute. How are you today?
Great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So how is the Arava, such a remote region in Israel, an example of such a global challenges, really?
Well, that's actually a great question. I'm from the Arava. I'm a native. And for those who don't know what the Arava is or where it is actually a region in the south part of Israel, in the Negev. It's hyper-arid, is not connected to Israel's water grid, and essentially it's, has really devastating climate and lack of water, and it's just scarcity. And what happened in recent decades is that the Arava has become Israel's food barn, producing 50% of Israel's fresh vegetable export. That's all from 600 farms in the Arava. So when you have that knowledge and that, concept in mind, you understand that the Arava has been facing desertification and all these challenges you just introduced, and we can actually share the knowledge. And this is why the Kasser Joint Institute for Food, Water, and Energy Security was formed, to take the knowledge that we've been, accumulating for many, many years in the farms of the Arava, combining it with the University of Arizona and doing amazing things around the world.
And Tania, really tell us some more about the research. What's so special about the agrivoltaics and aquaponics? For people who are less familiar with the terminology, what is it actually and what's so special about it?
Okay. So as you mentioned before, we want to target food, water, and energy insecurity. And the concept we had in mind is actually creating a research that answers all three issues. So the agrivoltaic is actually, you can hear from the name of it, agri as in agriculture and voltaic as in PV panels, solar panels. You actually place them on top of a field, and so you can grow crops underneath them. What happens is there are many benefits. For once, plants grown in the shade are actually benefiting from the shade, because you think of plants and you think about they need sunlight, that's correct. But the photosynthesis happens for several hours and then they enter into stress level. So in the shade, they thrive. The second thing that happens is you don't need to use that much water because there's less evaporation. So less water, more food, and the panels are actually performing better. Because we always think about PV panels as working amazingly in hot places, but that's not true. They work best in sunlight, but when it's too hot, they don't perform well. So the plants underneath them actually cool them down, making them more efficient. And in this system, what we try to do is give small-scale farmers the ability to grow food, to generate energy that they can use to operate a water pump or their irrigation. And that way they can live completely off-grid, which they usually are. The aquaponics research is actually the same concept of all-in-one system. In this one, we grow fish with crops in the same water tanks, and you use the water over and over again. Basically, you have fish in a tank, and then the water is filled with nutrients, fertilizer that is irrigated to crops, and then the water is circularized. So you put solar panels on top of that. Again, you're off-grid. So smart, simple solutions. And what we're doing is actually research both in Arizona and the Arava, combining and sharing knowledge so that we can find the perfect solution and take it to developing countries.
Wow, and we're hearing of Kenya. Why was Kenya actually chosen as the first place for implementation? Tell us shortly about the community in Kenya, about this place actually.
So in the Arava, we have a program called ACAT, which stands for Arava International Center for Agriculture Training, which brings students from developing countries to the Arava to learn about agriculture. We have over 700 graduates just from Kenya. So when you ask yourself why Kenya, first of all, we want to reach everywhere in the world, right? But we want to start with a community where we have good relationships, where we have a network of people that we can work with. And these graduates are exactly that. They're the future of the country. So that's why Kenya was chosen. And last July, we traveled to Kenya to meet with different communities that had great potential for a project. And we met this amazing community in Makueni, Kenya. It's a region in the south of the state. And what we found there was a big community with people that know to work together, which is very rare in Africa. And they're eager and ready to learn and get trained. But the problem with usually with projects in Africa is the sustainability, for long. And our concept is not to go and deploy something and walk away. It's to train them. It's to supervise. It's to work together with the community so that the impact lasts longer.
Tania, you at JNF-USA are doing sacred work always in everything you do. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.